My name is Dorothy Pierce. I'm 28 years old. I've spent most of my life learning how to make disappointment feel normal, like something you fold neatly and tuck into a drawer, only taking it out when you need a reminder of who you are in your own family. My younger sister, glamorous and effortless in ways I never could be, has always been the one my parents chose before I even understood what choosing meant. She grew tall and elegant. I grew short and soft. She got applause for existing. I got silence for trying. Over time, I adapted. Or maybe I just shrank until I fit in the small, dim corner they left for me. 8 months ago, when I married the man I loved, after 4 steady years together, I thought at least a wedding was too big for them to ignore. Everyone attended, friends, coworkers, distant cousins who barely remembered my childhood. Everyone except my parents and my 26-year-old sister. The empty seats with their names printed on crisp ivory cards felt colder than the air-conditioned venue. But I'd trained myself well. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I simply told myself what I always told myself. It's fine. It's predictable. It's them. I'd still invited my sister out of courtesy, even though our relationship had always hovered somewhere between strained and non-existent. She had a life people envied. Supermodel looks, business degree, high-powered job, the glow of someone who was always told she was enough. No more than enough. The daughter worth bragging about. The daughter who validated my parents' pride. She'd even done a little modeling in college, something my mother recounted at every social gathering, as if it were a badge she herself had earned. Me, I was practical average, the girl who got passing grades and worked regular jobs. The kind you don't put in photo frames. I don't say that to be self-pitying, just accurate. I had accepted long ago that I was not the daughter who made their eyes light up. Still, there was a sting in knowing they didn't bother showing up on my wedding day, not even for appearances. That was a new low. But instead of dwelling on it, I pressed forward with the celebration. I told myself it was better without the tension they would have brought. I held my husband's hand, smiled for photos, and swallowed the ache. I didn't talk to them right away. They hadn't RSVP'd, but there had been so many details to handle I couldn't chase after them. Invitations were double-checked, triple-checked. The guest list had been practically memorized. I knew their names had been included because I had insisted on writing them myself, re-inking their address twice to make it look perfect. After the wedding, when relatives began asking awkward questions, "Where were your parents? Did something happen?" I finally gathered myself and dialed their number. To my surprise, they answered immediately, their voices already laced with injury, as if I were the one who'd wronged them. "We were really hurt, Dorothy," my mother said in that trembling tone she used only when she wanted sympathy. "You couldn't even send us a formal invitation." I stood there, phone pressed to my cheek, listening to them rewrite reality in real time. A small buzzing started behind my ribs, anger or disbelief, I couldn't tell which. "I did send one," I said, calmly stepping into the kitchen so my husband wouldn't hear the tension creeping into my voice. A physical copy and the e-invite. "Well, we didn't get anything," my father cut in sharply. "You didn't even check with us. It's disrespectful." Inside, something snapped softly like a thread pulled too tight. While they continued their performance, I walked to the drawer where we kept the guest list and proof of RSVPs. My husband and I had been painstaking about it. I flipped through the spreadsheet. Their names were there, not just once, twice, verified, confirmed, logged. They were lying, blatantly. But I'd played this game my whole life. Challenging them only meant they escalated. So I did what I had learned to do. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I murmured, the words tasting like sand. "I'll pay more attention next time." As soon as I hung up, the anger finally flooded in, hot, nauseating, impossible to contain. I paced the living room until my husband found me there breathing too fast. "What happened?" he asked. I told him everything. The accusation, the false hurt in their voices, the fact that they were trying to make this my fault. His jaw tightened. "They're lying," he said simply, "and you know why." I stared at him confused. He took my hands, gently grounding me. "They didn't want to come," he said, "not because of an invitation. Because you got married first." It sounded absurd at first, too petty even for them. But then he reminded me of things I had ignored. "When you called to tell them about the engagement, they weren't surprised, Dorothy. They were upset. I saw it in their faces even on the video call. I had missed that completely. I'd been too focused on doing the right thing, informing them before posting online, giving them respect they never returned." He went on, voice steady. "At the engagement party, they didn't mingle. They sat in a corner whispering. When I approached them, they were on the phone with your sister. She was crying. I heard her. That image hit me like a long delayed impact. My parents hunched over their phones while the rest of the room celebrated us. And when they saw me, he added, they pretended everything was fine. They actually jumped and tried to act cheerful. The pieces began falling together in my mind with horrible clarity. My sister crying, my parents comforting her, my engagement overshadowing hers because she didn't have one. I felt a sharp throb of embarrassment, not for myself, but for the years I had spent minimizing this exact behavior. How did I miss it? I whispered. You didn't want to see it, he said softly. You wanted to believe they cared. He was right. For years I had trained myself to accept crumbs as kindness. I sank onto the couch and let the truth settle over me. Like a heavy blanket, my parents hadn't missed my wedding by accident. They'd made a choice. One more in a long line of choices where I simply wasn't the priority. Something hardened in me at that moment, a slow, steady crystallization of resolve. If I was the daughter they never chose, then maybe it was time I stopped choosing them too. The days after the wedding should have been peaceful. Newlywed routines, soft mornings, small domestic joys, but instead they carried a quiet pressure like a storm swelling beyond the horizon. My parents had made their choice, and I had made mine: distance, silence, self-preservation. I didn't announce a dramatic cutoff or deliver a grand speech. I simply let the absence speak for itself. They didn't check in. I didn't reach out. It felt strangely natural, like a wound finally allowed to scab. Life went on, and for months nothing happened. Then, a few weeks ago, I heard from an aunt that my sister, my eternally favored, perpetually applauded sister, was engaged. She had been dating a man for a year, and apparently he had proposed in some extravagant manner suitable for the princess of the family. Good for her, truly. I didn't care much either way, but the noise around it began immediately. My parents started bragging online, long captions, blurry photos of venues, quotes about blessings and milestones. They'd reportedly visited half the banquet halls in the city, searching for a place worthy of their golden daughter. My sister told everyone she would be shopping at Vera Wang, making sure the message trickled down the family network like gospel. I watched it all from the sidelines, completely detached. Or so I thought. A few days later, my phone rang. My mother's name lit up on the screen, something I hadn't seen since the accusation about the wedding invitation. I debated letting it ring out, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered. Their voices were hard, brittle. Dorothy, we need to talk, my mother began without greeting. What you're doing is incredibly cruel. My brows furrowed. What am I doing? You know exactly what my father snapped. Going around telling everyone we skipped your wedding because of your sister. I didn't go around, I said calmly. People asked. I told them what I believed to be true. And because of your lies, my mother hissed, no one wants to attend your sister's engagement party. I froze. What are you talking about? We invited dozens of relatives, she continued. Every single one of them has an excuse. A sick child, sudden travel, work emergencies. Oh, please. They're all lying, and we know why. Her voice sharpened. It's because of you, because you've been trying to sabotage your sister's happiness. The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed, but beneath it, a ripple of unease spread through me. Were relatives really avoiding the event? I hadn't spoken to most of them. I'd been busy with work deadlines, meetings, the mundane stability of my own life, but people had asked here and there why my parents hadn't come to my wedding. And yes, I had told them honestly. I never said don't go to her engagement. I never said choose me. I simply answered questions without sugarcoating the truth. Dorothy, you're ruining everything, my mother said, her voice shaking now not with sadness, but with rage. Your sister is devastated. She cried all night. Everyone thinks we're terrible parents because of what you said. I leaned back against the counter, pressing a hand to my forehead. I didn't say anything untrue, I replied. You didn't come to my wedding. You claimed I never invited you when I did. And you comforted her while I celebrated a milestone you couldn't bother attending. You're jealous, my father spat. You always have been. There it was, that old familiar weapon. They wielded it effortlessly like a reflex. I'm not jealous, I said evenly. I'm tired. Silence crackled on the line. Then my mother spoke again, voice clipped, strained. Well, tired or not, you need to fix this. Our family refuses to come to the engagement party because of your comments. Maybe they just don't want to support people who treat their own daughter like a placeholder, I replied before I could stop myself. The gasp from my mother's end was sharp and offended, as though the truth was a personal attack. My father cut in. We know you told people we skipped your wedding because your sister wasn't married first. That's what I believe happened, I said. And nothing you've said proves otherwise. You're painting us as villains, my mother cried. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The line between truth and appearance had always mattered more to them than how they actually behaved behind closed doors. Now that their image was cracking, they wanted me to take the blame. They kept arguing, accusing me of lies, insecurity, malice, but underneath their frantic words, I could hear something else, something unfamiliar. Fear. Fear that their perfect family facade was unraveling. Fear that their golden daughter's celebration would be attended by no one. Fear that their favoritism, once quietly tolerated, was now openly acknowledged. When the call ended, I stood in the kitchen alone, gripping the counter as the weight of everything settled over me. My husband found me moments later. What happened, he asked. I repeated it all, every accusation, every twist of the knife. He listened without interrupting, then exhaled slowly. They're spiraling, he said, probably because people are finally seeing them for who they are. His words should have comforted me. Instead, guilt pricked unexpectedly at my chest. I hadn't meant to start anything. I hadn't meant to make my sister's wedding into collateral damage. I had only told the truth because for once I refused to swallow it. Later that night, my cousin Mariah called. She's always been observant, someone who watches quietly from the edges. Hey, she said, her voice low. I heard your parents are blaming you for the engagement party fiasco. I sighed. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I know, she said. Everyone knows. People are just tired of them, Dorothy. We've all watched what they've done to you. Nobody wants to pretend anymore. Her words settled in me like warm coals, glowing steady, dangerous in their own way. I thanked her, hung up, and sat in the dim light of the living room. Something inside me shifted, not guilt, not pride, but clarity. For the first time in my life, the truth had power, and my parents were terrified of it. When my parents called again 2 days later, I already felt the storm gathering in my chest. Their names flashing on my screen didn't bring fear this time, just a cold, heavy resolve. I knew where this was going. They wanted control. They wanted silence. They wanted the old Dorothy who swallowed her tongue and accepted her place in their hierarchy. They didn't know that Dorothy was gone. I answered anyway, maybe out of habit. Maybe because part of me wanted this confrontation, needed it even. My mother's voice came first sharp and rehearsed. Dorothy, this has gone on long enough. You need to stop spreading lies about us. I didn't speak. You have caused enough damage, she continued. Your sister is humiliated. We are humiliated. This is your last chance to fix it. Something inside me, some thin, frayed thread finally snapped. Fix what? I asked, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. The consequences of your own actions. A beat of stunned silence. Then my father jumped in louder, angrier. You are being ungrateful. We raised you. We gave you everything. You didn't give me kindness, I cut in. You didn't give me fairness. You didn't give me the feeling of being wanted. The words came out before I could soften them, but I didn't want to soften them anymore. My mother gasped. You're twisting things. No, I said, I'm finally telling you the truth. And for the first time in 28 years, I didn't stop. I didn't shrink. I didn't choose peace over honesty. I spent my entire life trying to be good enough for you, I said, pacing my living room with restless steps. Every achievement I had, you found a way to minimize. Every mistake I made, you amplified. Every time I couldn't bring myself to say her name. Put me down, you laughed. You let her get away with everything. You let me take the blame for things I didn't do. You told me to be mature while she got to be cruel. My mother tried to speak, but I kept going, my voice trembling but unwavering. You always chose her. Always. I was the afterthought, the backup, the daughter you introduced as an obligation. Their silence on the other end wasn't silence at all. It was shock, pure stunned disbelief that I wasn't playing my assigned role. My father exhaled sharply. This is exactly why we say you're insecure, Dorothy. You imagine things. You twist memories. Stop, I said quietly, squeezing the bridge of my nose as my throat tightened. I'm not imagining anything. I lived it. A memory flickered me at 12 years old, sitting alone at my school play while my parents rushed out early to take my sister to a sports competition. The last look my mother gave me before they left wasn't sorrow. It was impatience, like I was irritation personified. Another memory, 16 years old, being told not to complain when my sister mocked my grades in front of her friends. She's just teasing, my father said. Don't be dramatic. 22. Getting my first job and hearing my mother answer a relative's question with, Yes, Dorothy is working somewhere now, but Jessica got promoted already. I swallowed. You think I'm insecure because that makes everything easier for you. Because then it's not favoritism, it's not cruelty, it's not neglect. It's just my supposed weakness. My mother scoffed lightly. If you weren't so sensitive. There it is, I said. Right there. Every time I tell you how I feel, you make it about my flaws. My voice rose, not screaming, but firm, solid, undeniable. You treated me like I didn't matter, and now that the family finally sees it, you're scared. Not because you care about me, but because you care about how you look. That hit them. I could hear it. A long pause. Then my father spoke, voice icy. If you've decided we're such terrible parents, then maybe it's best you live your life without us. We will not bother you again. My chest constricted, but not with grief, with amazement. Even now, faced with truth, they chose punishment over accountability. And he added, maybe your sister only seemed favored because she wasn't insecure like you. That is not our fault. A trembling breath left me. Once that sentence would have gutted me. Now it only clarified everything. I'm done arguing, I said. You don't want to understand. You want obedience. I won't give you that anymore. My mother exhaled dramatically. We expected you to fix this because you're our daughter, but clearly you enjoy making us look like villains. If the truth makes you look like villains, I replied softly, ask yourselves why. Silence again. A silence so thick it felt like the end of something old and poisonous. Then my father's voice brittle, goodbye, Dorothy. The call ended. I stared at my phone for a long moment, feeling weightless, hollow, lighter than I had any right to feel after such a confrontation. My breath shook as if my lungs weren't used to this much air. I had finally said it. All of it. And they didn't explode. They didn't prove me wrong. They didn't even attempt to show me love. They responded exactly as the version of them I had carried quietly inside my chest all these years. It was confirmation, painful, liberating, irreversible. I stood there until my husband walked into the room, concern etched on his face. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded slowly. I think so. I felt like I had finally pushed a mountain off my chest, one I didn't realize I'd been carrying since childhood. They said they're letting me go, I whispered. Like I'm some burden they're releasing. He wrapped his arms around me, and for the first time in days, I let my shoulders relax. That's not a loss, he murmured. That's freedom. Freedom. The word echoed through me, strange and warm. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but for the first time in my life, the truth wasn't something to fear. It was something I owned. The day after the confrontation with my parents, my phone buzzed with a new message, this time from my sister. Her name blinking across the screen felt oddly theatrical, as if she had been waiting in the wings for her moment to step forward and deliver the monologue she'd rehearsed her entire life. I opened the text reluctantly. Dorothy. I heard what you said to Mom and Dad. It was really wrong of you. They raised you. They did everything for you, and now you're insulting them because your insecurities are eating you alive. You should be ashamed. There it was, the holier-than-thou tone, the practiced moral superiority. She had always spoken like someone who believed she was born holding the moral high ground. I stared at the message for a long moment, then locked my phone without replying. I didn't have the patience to untangle her self-righteousness. Blocking her felt easier, cleaner, like shutting a window in a room filled with smoke. So I blocked her. 2 hours later, my husband called from work. He sounded breathless, with suppressed laughter. Dorothy, he said, chuckling. Your sister texted me. What? I snapped upright. She what? She texted me from a random number, says she got my contact from your parents. She wants me to convince you to apologize. My blood boiled instantly. She went behind my back to you. Oh, trust me, it's not intimidating, he said. It's hilarious. Read it, I demanded. I heard him clear his throat, then deliver her message in the most dramatic, exaggerated tone imaginable. Since you're part of the family now, you should act like it. Don't just sit back and let Dorothy make a fool of herself. You need to get her to fix this before it ruins our parents' reputation and embarrasses everyone. My husband burst out laughing halfway through the last sentence. I didn't. My fingers curled into fists. The audacity, the entitlement, the absolute shamelessness of inserting herself into my marriage as if she had authority, no ownership over how I should behave. She thinks she's the lead actress, my husband said, still laughing. She's not. She's the comic relief. Despite myself, a small laugh escaped me, but beneath it was a simmering anger, not the explosive kind, but the cold, quiet kind that settles into your bones. She's losing control, I murmured. That's what this is. My husband sobered, probably. But I wasn't finished spiraling. The more I thought about it, the more memories rose like ghosts, moments I had pushed down for years, just to avoid conflict. There was the time at a family barbecue when I was 17 and she accidentally spilled a full cup of soda down my white dress, then laughed with her friends while I stood there dripping. My parents told me not to overreact, that it was just a joke. Or the time she announced to an entire table of relatives that my promotion at work was cute, but hers was real success. Everyone laughed. My parents beamed proudly at her wit. Or when I once confided privately to her about a breakup, and an hour later she'd told 3 cousins the story, adding her own commentary about how no wonder men get bored of Dorothy. Humiliation wasn't a byproduct of knowing my sister. It was the currency she traded in. So, no, I wasn't surprised she texted my husband. I was furious, yes, but surprised, never. I spent the next day avoiding family calls and noise. But then just before dinner, my phone buzzed again, this time from my cousin Mariah. She didn't waste time. "Dorothy, I think you should know something," she said. My stomach tightened. "What?" She hesitated, lowering her voice. "Before your wedding, your sister was complaining to people that you shouldn't be getting married first. She said it made you look like you were beating her at something. There were rumors she told your parents she didn't want them to go." My breath caught. And Mariah added someone overheard her bragging that your wedding would have been embarrassing for the family if they showed up and she didn't have a ring yet. My heart thudded slowly, heavily. It wasn't confirmation yet, but it was context. Context that lined up too well with everything my husband had pieced together. But then Mariah said something else, something that sent a chill down my spine. "There was also talk," she said cautiously, "that one of your invitations never reached the person it was supposed to. Someone joked that your sister had something to do with it. Nobody took it seriously at the time." My pulse quickened. She paused. "I'm telling you this because patterns don't lie." I swallowed hard. If my sister had tampered with even one invitation, it meant she knew how to make it disappear. And if she could make one vanish, she could make 2 vanish. 2 addressed to my parents. My throat tightened. "Why didn't anyone tell me sooner?" I whispered. "Because no one wanted to stir drama. But now that things have blown up, people are starting to admit what they saw, what they heard." I thanked her and hung up, my mind spinning. Pieces of truth, small, sharp, ugly, began clicking into place. My parents didn't show up because they didn't want to. My sister didn't want them there. And someone, maybe even more than someone, suspected that she had interfered behind the scenes. I sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the blankets, breathing slowly until the swirl in my head steadied. My sister wasn't desperate just because relatives weren't attending her engagement. She was desperate because the image she'd built her entire life, the golden daughter, the flawless one, the one undeserving of consequences, was cracking. She had always needed me small, and for the first time I wasn't. In the days that followed, I didn't chase updates about my parents or my sister. I didn't ask around, didn't lurk the family chat threads, didn't pull at threads I knew would unravel me. I simply lived, went to work, cooked meals with my husband, slept through the night without waking up anxious about what my parents might say next. But the universe has a strange way of keeping you informed even when you stop looking. It started with my Aunt Rosa, who approached me in the grocery store with an expression that was half sympathy, half awe. "Dorothy, everyone heard what happened," she said quietly, her hand coming to rest gently on my arm. "Your parents, they're telling people you made up rumors out of jealousy." I blinked once. "Are they now?" She nodded. "But nobody believes them. Not after everything they've seen all these years." There was no triumph in hearing that, only a hollow sadness that made a strange kind of sense. My parents were scrambling, panicking, throwing accusations like darts at a wall, hoping one might stick. They'd underestimated the fact that people remembered. People noticed. People talked. And people empathized with the child who had always been treated as less. Later that evening at home, my husband sat across from me at the dining table and shook his head while scrolling through his phone. "Your parents are still trying," he said. "They told Cousin Caleb that you've always been jealous of your sister's beauty and success." I raised an eyebrow. "And what did Caleb say?" "He laughed," my husband replied. "Then he supposedly told them, 'You do realize we've all been watching how you treat Dorothy since she was a kid, right?' I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. More messages trickled in over the next day, cousins, uncles, even family friends I barely talked to. They all said some version of the same thing. "We always knew they treated you differently. We're on your side. You're not wrong. They're just embarrassed you finally spoke." But it was Mariah who called again with the revelation that sealed everything. She didn't even greet me formally this time. "Dorothy," she blurted out, "I found out who told your sister and your parents everything." I straightened. The cousin who'd been feeding information around the family, the one whose gossiping had fanned the flames, I'd wondered who she was. "It was Lila," Mariah said. "Of course. Lila, our resident chaos enthusiast, born with a radar for drama and a love for seeing sparks turn into fires. She wasn't malicious, just entertained. The kind of person who believed every family needed a little spice. She was the one who overheard, the one who connected dots, the one who whispered louder than necessary in rooms where silence was expected. So she spread everything I asked carefully. Everything Mariah confirmed. She overheard your sister talking your parents complaining, and then she told half the family before breakfast the next day. She didn't lie. She just didn't edit. I sighed. That explained how fast everything spread. My story wasn't a secret. It was a match dropped in a field of dry grass. But then Mariah hesitated. There's something else, she said. Something I think you need to know. A tension built at the base of my spine. What is it? I asked. She drew in a breath. Your wedding invitations. The ones your parents claimed they never got. Lila said she overheard your sister bragging months ago, telling a friend that she made sure certain invitations got lost. She didn't say whose, but she laughed about how easy it was. The room around me went silent. Still. Too still. For a moment, all I could hear was my own heartbeat, slow, heavy, vibrating in my ears. Mariah, I whispered, are you sure? She wouldn't joke about that, Mariah said. Not like that. Not with that tone. It wasn't proof, not something to confront in court, not evidence I could slam onto a table, but it was the kind of truth families passed down in quiet voices. A truth that made everything click. My sister had likely tampered with the invitations, maybe physically intercepted them, maybe pressured someone, maybe manipulated the situation in some other subtle, vicious way. She'd sabotaged my wedding before it even began, and my parents, whether they knew it or not, had chosen to believe her version. Chosen to follow her, hurt feelings chosen to spend my milestone pretending they were the wounded ones. I exhaled slow and deep. There it was, the truth. Not the dramatic kind wrapped in betrayal and theatrics, but the simpler, uglier truth. My family didn't miss my wedding by accident. They didn't forget. They didn't get tricked. They didn't lose the invitation. They chose not to show up, and my sister helped them justify it. I leaned back against the couch and let the realization settle like dust in sunlight. My parents had built their perfect image of the perfect family on my silence. The moment I stopped cooperating, the entire structure collapsed. My husband came to sit beside me, resting his hand on my knee. You okay? He murmured. I'm something, I said. Not broken, not triumphant, just honest. For the first time, the truth didn't feel like a blade I had to swallow. It felt like air. Clean, bracing, real. I thought telling the truth would destroy me, I said quietly. But it destroyed the version of them they wanted everyone to believe. He squeezed my hand, and it freed you. Freed. That was the only word that made sense. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need apologies. I didn't even need closure. I just needed to keep living honestly without shrinking myself to fit the role they created for me. As days passed, the calls stopped. My parents retreated into their echo chamber. My sister went silent after her attempt to enlist my husband failed. The engagement party happened with a thin guest list, so thin it became the quiet embarrassment of the season. And I moved on. Not with celebration, not with gloating, just with peace. Sometimes karma isn't fire and fury. Sometimes it's everyone finally seeing clearly. Sometimes it's simply the truth doing its quiet, devastating work. And if my parents thought I was the villain in this story, that was fine. Because the people who mattered knew the truth. And so did I.